Hi, everyone. This presentation is by Madison Rafter and Denise Alexander. We will be presenting you the study Video-Based Interaction, Negotiation for Comprehensibility, and Second Language Speech Learning, a longitudinal study by Kazuya Saito and Yuka Akiyama. So the study procedure. The aim of the study was to examine the effect of weekly conversational interactions on the oral development of Japanese learners of English. The participants were 30 Japanese English language learners. The ELLs were evenly divided into two groups, the experimental group and the comparison group. There were also 15 English interlocutors, native speakers of English. The experimental group completed 9 weekly 30-minute online conversational interactions with the native speakers, while the comparison or control group completed instead 9 individual vocabulary and grammar activities. All ELL participants completed a pre and post test, which measured their pronunciation, fluency, vocabulary, and grammar performance during spontaneous speech. The native speakers received training on how to negotiate for comprehensibility during oral interactions with the language learners. They were taught to focus on and correct only the errors that impeded comprehension. Whenever possible, the feedback was to take the form of recasts. As defined by Saville, Troik, and Bartow, recasts are an indirect correction that might appear to paraphrase what a learner is saying, but actually corrects an element of language use.
Okay, so I'll talk about some general study findings. So Saito and Akiyama state that adult L2 learners improve their proficiency as a function of increased conversational experience with other native and non-native speakers. Saito and Akiyama's findings are also consistent with existing research, which finds that decontextualized L2 learning via drill instead of interaction activities may not be an optimal method for making any tangible changes in L2 oral ability at a spontaneous level. The study also states interaction seemed to have a significant impact on L2 learners' comprehensibility, fluency, vocabulary, and grammar.
Okay, so now we'll continue to talk about the findings as they pertain to the interaction approach. This interactionist study makes some important contributions to the field of second language acquisition. Firstly, the results of the study confirm the importance of interaction in L2 learning. During the post-test, the experimental group demonstrated a significant improvement in all linguistic areas assessed, whereas the comparison group did not make significant improvement in any context. Within research on the interaction approach, this study is one of few that offers a longitudinal analysis of the impact of interaction as it took place over one academic semester. Much of the existing research focuses on standalone interactions. This study also contributes novel insights into the relationship between trigger, feedback, and uptake. In analyzing the results, researchers found that although language learner errors were primarily in pronunciation and grammar, the native speakers rarely corrected these errors and focused primarily on recasting errors in vocabulary. Interestingly, when native speakers did offer corrections in grammar, the uptake ratio from the language learners was relatively low. Pronunciation was the area least improved as a result of these interactions. This is consistent with the existing research, which indicates that despite interaction, pronunciation is a slow and gradual process that develops over several years. Saito and Akiyama note that some linguistic features, such as pronunciation, are better improved on through explicit forms of feedback and correction. This is not the only drawback of recasts and other indirect forms of feedback. Indirect feedback can be ambiguous to a language learner and thus more likely to be misinterpreted or missed altogether. Furthermore, recasts do not always prompt the learner to self-repair, which can result in lower overall uptake.
Okay, so now we'll talk about some connections to other social interaction theories. So this study highlights a connection between interactionist theory and sociocognitivism, namely Atkinson's view that conversation provides language learning opportunities via natural processes of alignment and interaction. The interactions in this study involve sociocognitivism's concept of alignment. Atkinson defines an alignment machine as a framework in which collaborative action can be performed. In this study, the interlocutors take cues from each other while conversing. They're in alignment as the responses or the native speakers' recasts are informed by how their partner has shaped the environment. According to Atkinson, a principle of sociocognitivism states that mind, body, and world collude in producing SLA as eco-social action. This brings to mind a potential limitation for this study. How is this relationship between mind, body, and world interrupted by the conversation taking place over Google Hangouts rather than authentically face-to-face? It's unclear how factors such as poor visibility of body language and facial expressions, the differences in physical environment, time differences, etc., between speakers may be affecting the learner's second language acquisition. So next, I will be making some connections between social interaction, with socioculturalism and interactionism. So some tenets of Vygotsky's socioculturalism are also at play in this study. As this study focused on interactions between a native speaker and a non-native speakers, Allman's work states that social interaction plays an important role in learning. Attention on the individual learner was given by the non-native speaker by helping the learner to engage in what could be their zone of proximal development. Allman finds when instruction reflects culturally sensitive practices, learners' motivation and satisfaction increases, and learning becomes deeper, lasting, and more meaningful. So the study could be improved by acknowledging the cultural differences that existed across interlocutors, as some speakers were in Japan and the native speakers were located in the United States. So to conclude our presentation, the results of the study confirm the importance of interaction in L2 acquisition. The experimental group saw improved L2 proficiency, whereas the comparison group did not show significant improvement. Next, sociocognitivism and socioculturalism shed light on some potential limitations to this study. Namely, sociocognitivism, the study could have been improved upon by having the conversations take place authentically face-to-face, as it's unclear how a virtual interaction might interfere with alignment between interlocutors. And lastly, socioculturalism, the study does not address cultural differences between the native speaker and the non-native speakers as study participants. Increased sensitivity to differences in culture between interlocutors could lead to further increases in learners' L2 language proficiency. So this has been our presentation. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to engaging with you on the discussion forum.